TNC-Paratransit Coordinating Committee. Let's go ahead and start with introductions. I will read off the names I see on the list and ask for introductions of anyone new or who would like to say hello. Starting off, we have Drew Nichols with SCTA, RCPA. I am Dana Ture with SCTA. I see Kathleen Cortez with Sonoma County Area Agency on Aging, John Gaffney with Golden Gate Transit, Ross Clendenden with SCTA, RCPA, Colin Thoma with the Disability Services and Legal Council. I see Yuri Koslin with San Rosa City Bus, Adam Garcia with SCTA, Carly Spencer with Petaluma Transit, Mohammed Ali with MV Transit, and our chair, Dennis Battenberg, is on the phone, and I'll be facilitating this meeting. Would anybody like to give a more of an introduction? Feel free to unmute yourself. Say hello. All right, well then let's go ahead and get started. Is there any public comment on items that are not on the agenda? All right, hearing none, let's move on to item number 3, which is the approval of the meeting notes from the November 15th meeting. Does anybody have any comments or corrections?
Dana, I'm wondering if we may need to bring these back.
Yeah,
I think we have a quorum at Sayview. As I'm looking, I see 6 of us on the call.
Thanks, Drew. I am just that's just thinking the same thing. So it does not look like we have a quorum today to pass action items. So that means there's a couple items that we'll need to defer. And in order to proceed with discussion items, I will ask the committee for a motion to proceed with holding this meeting as a committee of the whole. So this essentially means that we can continue our meeting and have discussion items, but we will not be able to take any action because we don't have a quorum. So
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Yuri.
I'll second.
Thanks, Kathleen. All right, any opposed? All right, great. Well, let's go ahead and proceed. So we'll move the approval of the notes to the March meeting for the November notes. So we have a number of administrative items to go through. And I will go ahead and start with discussion on the Brown Act and new requirements that are starting on March 1st. I have just a few brief slides to share and to kind of help with the discussion. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so I just want to briefly talk through the Brown Act changes that are starting on March 1st. So I think that all of you are familiar with the Brown Act, which is to encourage open government and public participation in meetings. During the COVID-19 state of emergency, the state allowed participating in Brown Act meetings via teleconference or Zoom. And this is coming to an end at the end of February. So starting March 1st, the SCTA will hold all Brown Act meetings in person in our office at 411 King Street. Committee members must attend in person to be included as part of a quorum and to participate in action items as a committee member. There are some limited exemptions for this, and those have some are defined a little bit in the attachment on the agenda for this item, and we could go through what those are in more detail, but it is fairly limited. Teleconference or Zoom will still be provided. I mean, we do plan to still provide Zoom as an option for members of the public that are attending meetings. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about, I know that some people on this committee have expressed difficulties getting to meetings or desire to participate remotely. And we do have a number of meetings throughout the year where we don't necessarily have action items. Committee members could participate as a member of the public if they want to participate via Zoom and not go through the process to be exempt from participating in person as a just cause or an emergency circumstance. So essentially, committee members to be considered a committee member, or committee members to be able to vote like a committee member, they will need to be participating in person. And anyone on Zoom or teleconferencing will be considered a member of the public. That is unless they've gone through an exemption process and notified us ahead of time if they need to participate via Zoom or teleconference as a committee member. So for any action items, we will need a majority of the committee members to be in person to be able to take action. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I will just open this up for comments and questions. I'll also just say that, we will have some stronger visual indications on our agendas that will make it clear whether we have action items at a particular meeting, so that members can be more informed about whether they're needed to participate in person at those meetings. And we'll also make sure for the March meeting, which will be the first one that will be in person this year, we'll make sure that we have some additional information about the requirements in that agenda. March meeting, we do plan to have some action items.
And then also, Dana, if you don't mind, Ross and I will be putting some updates on the website with all of this information too. So when it's ready to be posted online, we'll send out the blast, but our website will also have information as well when the time comes.
Thanks, Drew. All right, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I'm just concerned that we might continue to have this issue of not having a quorum, given the population that we serve and, the way the COVID pandemic and the other, viruses affect our clientele and people that from the public that may want to attend the meeting.
Thanks, Kathleen. I share that concern. We have had with this committee, while being online, we have had some issues getting to a quorum. And, we are, I think it's not going to be the most convenient thing for a lot of people to need to be in person. But we, I think that there are some groups that are advocating for certain meetings to be able to be continue online, and we're following that and seeing what happens. So we'll bring information here as we can. And kind of along those lines, the next item is just to confirm membership for the committee. We want to make sure that we have all of our members' names correct, and also for certain organizations represented, that we have any alternates names down. That way, if you're the main person that comes and shows up for your agency, if there is an alternate, they would be able to participate as a committee member if they're listed. So I'm going to go ahead and just share that my screen with that item on the agenda, so we could run through it quickly. So essentially, from here down, we have our committee members listed. If you could take a look at your organization and just make sure your information is correct, that'd be great. If there is anybody that should be included as an alternate from your organization, if you could let us know, that would be great. You could also, if you want to take this and review this with other staff, you can send any updates or information to Drew after the meeting. All right, any comments on this item?
I believe I should be an alternate for Petaluma Transit. Jared asked me to fill in for him today.
Yeah, absolutely. And welcome to the committee, Carly.
Thank you.
We will go ahead, I can go ahead and add your name to Petaluma Transit.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I saw your chat, Yuri, so I'll get Matt on this list as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Dana?
Yes.
Before we move on to the next item, can I ask if what, if any, thing is being done to recruit new members, like Spanish Latino service provider or service organization, or paratransit riders in the ones where we've consistently had vacancies? Is there any work being done to recruit new members?
Yeah, so we have reached out to the Latino service providers in the past, as well as a number of different agencies that we felt can possibly find, have somebody that represents those groups. And we haven't had too much success in filling certain vacancies. But we do have on our website, under our committees our committee page, we do have a form that folks can fill out if they're interested in being a member on the committee. And it's something that we can, we should post in our newsletter again. That's something that we can definitely do. We've done that in the past, but it's probably about time to do that again. So we can make sure that we do that.
I'll make a note to add that to the upcoming newsletters.
Thank you, Ross. All right, any other comments or questions on the membership? Okay. Item 4C is the TPCC bylaws. I like to include this in the agenda packet at the first meeting of every year, just as a reminder and information item. So those are just there for your information. If you have any questions, let me know. I could try to answer them. But these are the bylaws that this committee, the updates that this committee adopted March of last year.
I had a question on item 4.6, public forum. I don't recall that ever being done by this committee.
I would have to look up what that public utilities code section is. What exactly that refers to. I think that is just referring to how you hold a public forum. But I would need to take a look into that more closely. Our meetings are open to the public. And are an open forum. So it may just be that that is what our requirement is.
Just curious.
Yeah, and I've just, okay, thanks, Kathleen. I just took a look at what that public utilities code section is, and that's essentially just the description of the paratransit coordinating committee requirements. So all of the meetings we hold are public. So I'm not quite sure if there's a purpose to calling out the requirement to facilitate an annual public forum, since all of our meetings are. Any other questions on the bylaws or comments? Okay. The next item is 4D. It's just a list of the SCTA and RCPA committee meeting dates for 2023. Then that's included in your agenda packet for information. Item 4E is the election of officers for 2023. And since we do not have a quorum and operating as a committee of the whole, we'll defer this item to the March meeting. But I'll just give a brief summary of it. We typically elect a chair and vice chair for this committee at the first meeting of the year, each year. For 2022, our chair has been Dennis Battenberg, and our vice chair has been Gina Erickson. So we will, go ahead and take nominations and make a vote on that at our March meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that item?
I could just give you a little bit of feedback. What I've heard from a lot of people from some of the service provider organizations is that the meetings for the TPC is really about the public transit, which is what it's supposed to be. But when you're talking about unmet needs, there seems to be no avenue or advocacy done by the committee to fulfill that or investigate that or hear about that unmet needs. Like, for example, the past couple of weeks where we've had this torrential rain and flooding, there's a number of older adults who aren't comfortable driving in that kind of weather. They have doctor's appointments. They don't have a disability, so they don't qualify for paratransit. They can't necessarily walk a half mile or 3/4 of a mile to get to a bus stop, at night in the weather. And so there's no option for the population that we serve. And I know a number of people have tried to advocate for that, an on-demand, a dial-a-ride, anything that any of our public transit agencies could do to serve our older adults that don't have a disability or a qualifying disability. And so a number of people have just voiced a lot of frustration at what these meetings are about. And it doesn't, from their vantage point, the providers don't want to hear about it or do anything about it. So I feel like there's going to be this ongoing problem of getting people to become members. If it's the same old, just a report out and no advocacy or solution driven problem solving to some of the unmet needs that we have.
So Kathleen, any of these people who are making these comments about our committees are certainly welcome to ask for topics to be included on the agendas and to do that at the meetings, to join these meetings. They are open to the public. We're definitely happy to take requests for agenda items and have those discussions. I think I could just say that when there are resources for a lot of the solutions that we would like to see, I understand the frustration, but we are certainly an open forum and can definitely have those discussions here. So I would encourage anybody who's contacting you with these concerns to join our meetings, and if there's particular topics they want to put on agendas, they can certainly reach out to me or bring those up during our meetings.
And I'll just add, I think that's interesting, Kathleen, what you're talking about, and about during storm, special transportation during storm events. I think we're used to storm events where we're evacuating or fires and there's a reduction of demand. But I think if I think it's, if there are solutions that are being applied in other areas around some of the stuff you're suggesting, I think it'd be worthwhile to bring those forward. But I'm just in these kind of short-term events, we currently don't have TNCs deployed, but there are existing taxi services in town. And I'm curious as to know what's the hurdle to use those. And I think it's worth talking about what you're bringing forward. just conceptually, because that's kind of the first I've heard of it is in this discussion.
I think there's been a number of people here from Cloverdale that have, been talking about the transportation challenges there. Jenny Chamberlain, who's in James Gore's office, had shared, I'm not sure at what meeting, I think that was a special SCTA meeting, about the challenges that her family faced of having 10 children, and I mean, not even being older adults, but getting children to doctor's appointments and schools and things like that. And Cloverdale being very remote and not having, a lot of access to transportation, and there are other rural areas as well. Just a lack of transportation options for people who don't drive but don't have a disability.
So it sounds like the transportation challenges are pretty specific and in already transportation challenged areas and regions. So there's kind of, it sounds like it's, I don't know. I mean, sometimes you can create systems that work for multiple people, and then sometimes there's always unique challenges for particular areas. And so I think our challenge, not to overuse the term, but our challenge is to be able to distinguish between, is there something that we can do on a systems level, or are these individual circumstances that are not necessarily solvable from a system standpoint, and they're more specifically associated with a small group, in which case it might not make sense to create a system for that, to serve that. Anyways, I think it's a larger discussion, but I think what as providers, it's harder for us to look at individuals and more and easier for us to look at kind of larger demand. And so handling the individual special circumstances, I don't know who's best to handle those. I know if it's operating in the county, it's not city staff that can assist with that.
Yeah, and those challenges get greater, in the more rural, less dense areas. Certainly, those issues become an individualist issue, right? The fewer and further that there you are between people. So.
But I do think Kathleen's point around trying to figure out how to make sure people are heard if they do come to this committee, even if we can't solve the problem, just figuring out a way that people don't feel like they're not being heard, I think is so. If that's the issue you're raising, Kathleen, I think it'd be good to look at those individual circumstances to figure out how we can make sure people are at least feel heard.
Yeah, I think it would be good for SCTA staff to follow up with people who sign up to be a member and then stop coming, and find out why, kind of like an exit interview, you're listed, becoming independent, for example, you're listed as a member, but, haven't been showing up. Is there a reason why? Is there anything we can do? Is there an alternate? I mean, a little bit of work by SCTA to have the quorum that we need to move the business forward would be good if possible, and to get that feedback directly instead of, I'm happy to share. I'm not afraid to speak out. I've been hearing it for years. I think everyone is familiar with the challenges of transportation for our older adults and the population demographics that we have. But it would be great for other people to hear it as well directly.
Yeah, and I encourage everyone here or anyone who's reached out to you who maybe has been at Kathleen, who has been at this meeting before. If there are items that you think we should be talking about, definitely let's get them on the agenda. And we can have that, have those discussions.
Well, I just have a small thing. I don't know, like the volunteer programs, are they invited to this meeting as well? And I know, I don't know if they ended up becoming active, but they were starting to have a volunteer program set up in Cloverdale. I haven't followed through to see if that happened, where maybe some of the areas could start working with volunteers to get for somebody who doesn't have a disability to be able to assist to help them just on rainy days or whatever. I don't have all the answer. I was just curious because I don't know how that's set up or who's invited to this meeting as well.
Yeah, so we have asked, we do have kind of some committee, identified committee positions for agencies that either serve seniors or people living with disabilities for transportation. And so some of those have been filled by organizations that run volunteer driver programs. I think we only have one on our committee currently. We did have two, but from my understanding for the one that left was that things just got too busy for them. But we have, we have reached out when the Area Agency on Aging was holding a transportation mobility committee. We certainly reached out quite a bit, trying to both get interest in people to join this committee, either as a member or a member of the public. So if there is a way to reach out to the volunteer driver agencies that are not participating, we can certainly do that and see if they want to be on the distribution list. All right. Anything else on the administrative items? Let's go ahead and move on to roundtable updates. Let's see. Yuri, would you like to start with an update from City Bus?
Sure. Yuri Coslin, transit planner with City Bus. I think, I was one of the updates is we have 4 battery electric buses that we had hoped would be on the road in December, but they're still not on the road. We're waiting for a piece of paperwork from the DMV in order to title them. So if any of you ever had issues at the DMV, well, so is the city. So we had our launch celebration in December, and we hope the buses would be on the road the same week, but we're basically just waiting on some paperwork from DMV. And I reached out to a number of PUG members to say that we, that we're going to have some sort of event where people can kind of hear or listen for and see the buses, so they can, I think there's some concerns around how loud the buses, how quiet the buses are. And so when they're in operation, we'll hold some sort of event. It might be at the next PUG meeting. I talked about it being today, but they're still not on the road. So it's something we'll reach out to the TCP staff or attendees to let you know when that event's happening. We're trying to coordinate with Petaluma and the county on our shelter, what our shelters will look like. So we're trying to move to a shelter that looks a little bit more similar to what the county and Petaluma have. We have a contract we're putting in place for to get some new screens at the transit mall for real-time images there. And we're also moving forward with pursuing a new automatic vehicle location system. And what else? I'm working on the zero emissions bus rollout plan for CARB, which is required for the agencies to complete by to be adopted by their board by June. We expect to have some additional service out this as we're trying to kind of build back from pandemic. We've had reduction of service just due to lack of drivers, and so we're hoping to have new schedules sometime this spring with a little bit more service. Yeah, I think we have some updated paratransit eligibility applications that are available online. Petaluma and the county have the same application. It's a county-wide shared application, so those are available. We've been meeting with Amtrak around moving of their stop that's on Edwards. We know that there's a bike pedestrian bridge that's going to be built over Highway 101 at some point, and so the construction will basically land right where Amtrak stops right now. We've met with them last year, and the city's been advocating for Amtrak to stop at the Transit Mall, but Amtrak's a little resistant to that. I guess according to them, their current riders, they kind of want it to be an environment where similar to what they have currently at Dick's. So we started making plans for them to move over to Coddingtown, but Range Avenue is also going to be repaved here next spring. So we're going to delay the movement of the Amtrak stop to Coddingtown until that work is complete. And they've talked about possibly a second bus stop in Santa Rosa, maybe downtown. They were curious about a bus stop on 3rd Street near the Smart Station, which is kind of downtown, but it would just take some movement. There's parking meters and parking machines, and there's a couple different things there that don't make that spot ideal. So anyways, those are some discussions that have been happening. I think that's all I have for now, unless Mohammed, do you have anything else to add around paratransit? I see you unmuted, Mohammed, but I don't hear you. Now I see you muted.
Now I'm not, right?
There we go. Gotcha.
Oh, good. All right. Thank you. The only thing we can add is like all our service popping up for the new year. All the JC classes all over the places now back to service. All the programs are back to service. And we're seeing a really, really jammed schedule these days. So hopefully that finish in a good note. Rain-wise, we're not affected yet, but hopefully not. We'll see next week how it's going to bring, and we're ready for that. If there is any emergency anywhere, just give us a call. We will pop up in your house and we'll pick you up and take you to a safe place. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, John, would you like to give an update on Golden Gate Transit?
Sure. Unfortunately, bus and ferry ridership are still only at about 40% of pre-pandemic, so still very, very few riders. Bridge traffic is down about 20% from pre-pandemic, so though that's up from where it has been, we've seen a shift mainly to the weekends on the traffic for the bridge. As far as paratransit goes, severe driver shortage, just as everyone has. Looking for people. We're at about half of where we'd like to be right now. And just like you guys with our committee, our Advisory Committee on Accessibility. In desperate need of some more people for that committee. Been out actually hitting the pavement, putting up flyers at libraries, community centers. No takers, but hoping that turns around. I'm going to do some more later this week. So that's where we're at.
All right. Thanks, John. If you have any successes on recruitment, I would love to hear about it.
I'll let you know.
Thanks. All right. Let's see. April had to leave. So there won't be an update for Sonoma County Transit. Carly, would you like to give an update for Petaluma Transit?
Yeah, so we still have an open position for the transit specialist. I believe a new group of applicants just came in, so we're hoping to get them in interviews, and we're hoping for the best with that group. We'll be making our first electric bus purchases in the next quarter. And we're still working on the infrastructure for our facility for that. And then we're starting free fares for students. So it'll be K through 12. We're starting that July 1st. And I believe it's for 2 years now, but we want to try to extend that. And then lastly, we're doing free fares on February 4th for Rosa Parks Day.
Thanks, Carly. And
I'll just
yeah, just
add,
mention, go ahead, you're right.
were you gonna say the same thing, Dana?
Yeah, that all City Bus and Sonoma County Transit, as well as Petaluma Transit, are all doing a fare-free day for Rosa Parks Day on February 4th.
And also we'll, starting July 1st, we'll have free fares for students. It's countywide.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to mobility partner report. Kathleen.
Yeah, so as I mentioned at our last meeting, that we are kicking off our community needs assessment for 2023. It's part of our 4-year plan we do every 4 years to find out what the needs are for our seniors in Sonoma County. So we are doing focus groups, and we have an online survey that will run through March 15th. It's in Spanish and English, and our focus groups, we have 2 that are online, 2 that are in Spanish, and all of them are accessible in English. And so if you, I sent a flyer to Drew and Dana that they can send out, and if you want any more information, please feel free to contact me about it. If you can share it with users or seniors, or publish any information on your website or e-blast if you have a newsletter, that would be helpful. We're really trying to get at the underserved populations in our community, Spanish speakers, people with disabilities, people in more rural areas. So all you need to do is either scan the barcode or click on that seniorsofsonoma.org, and it'll bring up the registration for the focus groups and the links to the surveys. And that's all.
All right, thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, we will go ahead and send that flyer out to the distribution list after this meeting, and I'm also putting the link to the survey in the chat if anybody wants to grab that as well. All right, I don't see any other mobility partners on the meeting.
I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay.
It-
Sorry.
Just a couple of things. Main office in Santa Rosa is not back open to the public. We will host open orientation on Mondays. So if you have people that need help with Social Security, benefits, housing, disaster preparedness, and other stuff, you can come over, and then staff will be available by appointment Tuesday to Friday. And then with his last State of the Storms, being in calls about frustrations with trying to get rides from transit providers and kind of a frustration with some lack of coordination between Sonoma County and the two state buses. Similar to what Kathleen was talking about earlier. That's all.
Thank you. All right. Item number 6 is some future agenda topics that the group would like to cover. Those listed include a model transit network company and paratransit partnership programs, as well as the state master plan for aging. Does anybody have any other topics they would like to put on the future agenda topics list to bring to meetings this year? Okay, we can add to that list anytime. So, all right. Are there any other? Is there any other business comments or announcements?
Dana, we could bring some more stuff on Future for Transit. I think we could maybe go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that once we have the study fully scoped out, it would be a good time to bring that to this committee. So, you know, March would probably actually be a great time. We can give an update on the transit integration work we're doing and a service planning study that is going through procurement right now. So thanks, Yuri. All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Thank you all for participating today. And we look forward to seeing you in person on March 21st. Okay.